I'm not going to mince words when it comes to this movie. I think Making Contact is awful. It feels like someone tried to replicate the look and feel of movies like Poltergeist and E.T., but forgot to include what made them good movies. You know, like decent writing and a coherent storyline. What you end up with is a total disaster of a movie that tries to go in several different directions, but ultimately goes absolutely nowhere. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. And yes, I know a lot of you requested this movie a few years ago, but I didn't get around to watching it until recently after someone requested it in the live chat during one of my premieres, and I'm really glad that they did because I did not enjoy watching it. And if that sounds weird to you, then you must be new here. Welcome. Making Contact was released in 1985, and it was directed by Roland Emmerich, who also went on to direct movies such as Independence Day, Godzilla, The Day After Tomorrow, and 2012, just to name a few. The original version of this movie is a German movie called Joey, which was then re-edited and had 19 minutes cut out for its North American release. It was then titled Making Contact. Making Contact tries to tell the story of Joey, a young boy living in Fogtown, who recently lost his father to a tragic basketball accident. Anyways, Joey is up late, wondering what life could have been like if his dad didn't attempt that fateful fadeaway jumper, when suddenly a basketball falls on the floor and rolls over to him, you know, to really rub it in. Suddenly, all the toys in his room start coming to life, and all signs point to something in the closet. You know, like Poltergeist, but not nearly as interesting. So Joey opens the closet door, but then the toy phone starts ringing. So he picks it up, and apparently, according to Joey, it's his dead dad on the line. So he spends the night talking to him. And honestly, Joey's mom has really got to do something here. I mean, I know there's probably been a lot going on in the house ever since the untimely death of this kid's father, but don't you think it's time to switch out the Sesame Street curtains? It's just gonna be another thing for all the kids in his class to pick on him about. I mean, first his dad dies, and now if they see this, school on Monday is gonna be brutal. And that's pretty much what happens. The kids sneak a fake egg into Joey's bag that contains a skeleton and a note, probably making fun of him for being half an orphan, but the teacher is not impressed.
I don't think this is particularly amusing. Now I want everyone to listen carefully.
Yes, it's true. Joey's dad is dead. No, he's not coming back. He's in the ground. All right? But this is not accurate. It's only been a few days, like what, a week tops, right, Joey? Yeah, so Joey's dad is not a skeleton yet. Come on. The worms haven't had even remotely enough time to even get close to getting through the walls of the casket. Probably. It kind of depends on how much they spent on it. You know, the more expensive caskets have a kind of extra worm protection. But I wouldn't bet on that in this case, because I don't think Joey's family has a lot of money. I mean, they can't even afford to get him new curtains. And then, after school, the kids throw his books on the floor, and he has to pick them back up, but it takes a while because he can barely see them in the smoky school hallway. So I guess Joey is able to start moving things with his mind now, somehow. It's kind of weird because he suddenly just has this ability, but he's not, surprised or shocked by it in any way. Oh, and also, Joey has a robot that's basically like a sentient toy, and he lives next to a haunted house that's home to a possessed ventriloquist dummy. So Joey takes the dummy back to his house and then shows his mom his telekinetic abilities. But now the phone's ringing and the dummy doesn't like that. So the dummy uses his telekinetic abilities to get rid of it and then shoots some lightning. This is when the dummy starts talking to him and tells him that the person he's been talking to on the phone is not actually his father. And Joey is just like, "You're lying."
So you think that's your father on the telephone? Well, it ain't. You're lying.
Yes, he's just instantly accepted the fact that this dummy is evil and talking to him and moving things around the room with magic, and this is his reaction to that.
Hey, what's going on?
If you were 9 years old and you just got electrocuted by a ventriloquist dummy that you found inside of an old house who is now talking to you and making your TV float across the room, do you really think your reaction would be, "Hey, what's going on?" Pretty sure I'd be screaming at the top of my lungs. In fact, I'd be doing that at this age. So the TV starts talking about an old ventriloquist who used magic in his act, and then his son died, so he started using black magic, and apparently that's who he's been talking to on the phone, which is amazing. You'd think he'd know if the voice on the phone wasn't his father's, but I guess not. But the really big question is, what started all of this? You know, what brought this all on? No clue. Just started happening.
I don't believe in you! Got it?
One of the weirdest things about this movie is the writing, because the interactions and the dialogue just sound so unnatural, so it adds this layer of disconnection and confusion for the audience. So the dummy is like, "You don't want to listen? Then fine. Take a look at this. That's right, your mom is putting this pan in the wrong cupboard. This house is nothing but chaos now." Then all the phones in the entire city start ringing for some reason. The ghost or whatever likes to do this, but I'm still not sure why. His mom, Laura, finally walks into the room and he's like, "Yeah, no, everything is totally fine. Nothing to see here. Don't worry about that TV on the floor or that creepy new doll that you've never seen before. Yeah, no, totally cool." The next morning, Laura comes downstairs to find that someone really doesn't like the style of her kitchen.
It wasn't me.
What do you mean?
Honest.
My God, Joey, why would you say something like that?
Yeah, why would you say something like that, Joey? Why would you mention the obvious thing? That's not what we do. We ignore things in this house, just like I ignored that giant mess in your bedroom. So, just act like the knives sticking out of the cupboard don't exist. What's so hard about that? Also, I find it funny that after everything that happened the night before, Joey apparently just got his pajamas on and went to bed. Dude, what was that sleep like? I mean, at the very least, I would get that thing out of my room. Can you imagine? Can you imagine just like, well, I guess it's time for bed now. So Laura wants to know what's going on, and Joey just says that he's evil and he won't let me talk to Daddy. And then the scene just ends. Kind of curious as to what Laura's reaction was to that. I have to say, this all seems kind of backwards. You know, the kid sees the knives and he's like, "I didn't do that." And his mom's like, "Why would you say something like that? What is going on here?" But then when he says he's evil and he won't let me talk to my dead father, we don't get a reaction? That's easily the more disturbing thing to say. To all you parents out there, if your kid said something like that, wouldn't it raise some eyebrows? I don't even need dialogue. Just give me the reaction shot. I just want to see the expression on her face like, what the f***ing f***? So Joey goes into the backyard and decides to bury the dummy. And Joey, did the thought of trying to destroy this thing even cross your mind? I hate when they do this type of stuff in movies. Like when there's something that's evil or cursed and the main characters just try and bury it or, you know, throw it down a well, and then they're like, well, that's the end of that. I mean, you have a shovel. I would be using that to try and smash this thing into a million pieces. Then I would dig a hole so that I could build a fire in it and burn those pieces. So I guess the bullies dig up the dummy and then use their remote control tanks to terrorize Charlie. You know, Joey's toy robot that has a life of its own somehow, and Joey starts using his mind powers to destroy them. But then suddenly his teacher shows up and Joey runs away. Martin, Joey's teacher, assumes that the dummy belongs to Joey for some reason, so he just walks right into his house and leaves it on the stairs. Then Laura is like, "Hey, how did you get in here?" And he's like, "Well, the door was open," which is the universal sign for walk right on in. I gotta say, Laura, if I woke up and found a bunch of knives sticking out of my cupboards, I would probably check to make sure that all the doors to my house were locked consistently throughout the day. But I have to say, I really admire Laura's creativity here, because she's chosen to cover up the knives with a bunch of various rags and tea towels, which looks much better than having to stare at a bunch of handles. I mean, what else is she supposed to do? Take the knives out and have the cupboards displaying a bunch of stab wounds? That would look pretty trashy. So Martin is like, hey, these knives are supposed to be in a knife block. What the hell is going on here? And Laura is like, oh, don't worry about that. That wasn't Joey, you know, my son with telekinetic powers. It was just an evil ventriloquist dummy who's trying to prevent Joey from talking to his dead father over a plastic toy telephone. I mean, I knew being a single parent would be a challenge, but honestly, this is a bit much. Then they find that the dummy has disappeared, but I guess it's not that big a deal. Why would it be? Everything strange and threatening that has been going on seems to be connected to it, but whatever. Martin stays over for dinner, and Joey starts using his mind powers, so the two of them are like, hey, Joey, don't tell anyone about your powers, okay? Because quite honestly, you're kind of walking on thin ice socially with your peers, and you don't want to be labeled as the weird kid. That's a label that never goes away. And then we'll be known as the people who hang out with the weird kid, and then no one's going to want to hang out with us. Joey uses his powers to make Martin's spoon so hot that it burns his hand. But that's okay, because there's always the tried and true home remedy of sticking your hand in a fishbowl.
Here.
I once read that such phenomena usually occur during puberty.
Right. Joey just turned 9.
Yeah, Martin. Idiot. This clearly isn't a case of those puberty superpowers. He's not old enough yet. Something else is going on with him. And do you mean to tell me that there are people out there who got to go through a telekinesis stage during puberty? Well, what the hell? I didn't get anything like that. All I got was depression. So, doesn't seem fair. Joey goes upstairs and starts talking on the magic phone again, and the dummy starts messing around with stuff, you know, flickering lights, closing windows, shooting lightning bolts, driving cars. The movie is trying so hard to be Poltergeist, but at the same time, it seems to have no idea what it's doing or where it's going.
I won't believe in you.
See, what does that have to do with anything? What does not believing in him do? Does he fail to have any power if you don't believe in him? Nothing like that has been established. See, this is why you feel so disconnected watching it, because stuff like that comes up and you're just like, wait, what?
I'll call my dad.
Anyways, I have no idea what's actually going on here. I don't know what the dummy is trying to do or what it wants. Martin and Laura are standing in the hallway wondering just what the hell is going on here. Joey starts choking the puppet, and then suddenly it's over. And Joey ties up the dummy in the closet, and then it just cuts to the next day, and Laura and Martin are visiting her husband's grave? Really? There was nothing more to that? Hello, movie police. I'd like to report a missing scene. I went and checked the German version to see if maybe they cut something out there, but no. That's it. There's nothing more to that scene. You mean to tell me that Martin and Laura just give up on trying to get into the room? After all the screaming and seeing the smoke pour out from under the door and the lightning bolts shooting through the air, and you're just like, well, the door's blocked by something, so might as well call it a night. I mean, what did they think was going on? Oh, he's probably in there playing Nintendo. And then what happened the next morning? I'm just curious. Did Laura go up to Martin like, hey, do you want to go to the cemetery to visit my dead husband's grave? And Martin's like, okay, but do you really want to leave Joey alone? And Laura's like, yeah, what's the big deal? I mean, sure, he's my son, but I don't have to see him all the time, Martin. We have separate lives. And also, I have to mention, after everything that has happened, this is your solution, Joey? Why is this thing still in the house? So Martin convinces Laura to call in the professionals, friends of his from the university, he says. And suddenly, there's an army of people in white coveralls swarming the neighborhood. They set up a lab inside the house with dozens of computers and monitors and cameras, and I guess they start running tests on Joey. And I mean, who are these people? Professionals from the university of what? Ambiguous testing? And how did this happen? Did Martin just call up the university like, hey, you gotta come check out this student of mine. He's got telekinetic powers, you know? He's moving soup bowls and heating up spoons, and it's probably why the phone lines have been so screwy lately. And they're just like, holy crap. Okay, everybody, stop what you're doing. Pack up your shit. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. Load up the trucks. Be sure to bring the random number generator and the brain scanning chair. We gotta get to this kid's house right away. Because this guy just called and said that he's, using his mind to move cutlery and dishes and shit. Meanwhile, the other kids come up with a plan to capture Joey because they think he's a wimp, and they do this inside of the haunted house, which starts caving in suddenly. I guess the dummy got loose somehow. This is actually explained in the original version of the movie when the bullies ambush the house and one of the kids takes the dummy. But all of this was part of the stuff that they cut out for the North American version. So Sally goes and tells Joey that the kids are trapped in the haunted house, and they just leave. So now it's a movie about Joey trying to rescue these kids. The house becomes a giant maze filled with the fears of all the kids, like monsters and giant hamburgers, and Darth Vader even shows up. I don't know what's going on here. There's a ghost at some point who says that an evil spirit took over his dummy, and that Joey has to go to another world, and that's where his father is. So this lights the dummy on fire, and Joey is now in some kind of spirit world. And then I'm not sure what happened. The movie doesn't explain it. The kids just find Joey in some rubble, so I guess they all got out of the house somehow. So the ambulance shows up, and instead of taking him to the hospital, they just set up a hospital room in his bedroom. And after a while, Joey dies. I'm not joking. The first time I watched this, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be hilarious if he just died? And then when it actually happened, I just started laughing my ass off. Because it's not even remotely as emotional as it's supposed to be. You don't have much of a connection to any of these characters because you've spent most of the movie wondering what the hell is going on. And then suddenly a bunch of Joey's toys start flying down the hallway and Joey opens his eyes. Great, it's over. The ending in the German version is slightly different. Sally just walks into his room and then it ends there. In my opinion, they're both awful endings. I really don't know how to put it into words. I think this is like the cinematic equivalent of just throwing a bunch of crap at the wall and seeing what sticks. This movie had 3 screenwriters, and in the end, it almost feels as if they all had different ideas, so they just slapped them all together without any concern for how it would actually work. In regard to the movie, Roland Emmerich was quoted as saying, "I want to make entertaining movies for a broad audience. Germany needs a film industry again. Making artsy movies may be nice for the ego, but it will not feed an industry. Entertaining the masses is the foundation, and that has been neglected here for a long time. People like Spielberg and Lucas are showing the way. Why shouldn't we go in the same direction? We can do it too, and we can do it cheaper." Well, you definitely did something. And while I can clearly see the influence that Steven Spielberg and George Lucas had on this is a total mess, in my opinion. To me, it's the perfect example of style over substance. I had to watch this movie twice to do this review, and sometimes when I watch these movies, I'll pick up on small things that maybe I didn't notice the first time I watched it, or there's something that makes a little bit more sense during the second watch. But with this, the movie actually got dumber the second time I watched it. I want to thank all of my supporters on Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, and my YouTube channel members. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, but that's pretty much it for this one, and I'll see you all next time. But still, this is not nice. I want you all to open your notebooks, go to a new page, write this down. Joey's dad is gone. He's dead. Deceased. D-E-C-E-A-S-E-D. I will not make fun of him with little tiny skeleton keychains. Otherwise, they will be taken away by Mr. Martin and not returned. That's right. I'm keeping this. Kind of like it, actually. Does this glow in the dark? If I hold this under the light, you know, like in Sally, in 5 minutes, get the lights. Be really cool if it did. One of the interesting things about this movie is that even though it was a German production, they wanted to shoot it in English. So they ended up hiring a bunch of kids from an American military base to be in the movie, which is why I really can't blame the child actors in the movie, because they weren't actors. Then I would dig a hole so that I could build a fire in it and burn those pieces. Then I would take the ashes and scatter them all over town in various different places so that, you know, the ashes can't like come together and build the entity again. And here's the thing, get creative with it, you know, throw some in the gutter, throw some in the dumpster, maybe go to the forest. And apparently you live pretty close to water and you have a bike. It's not that far, Joey.